Good morning. I have the privilege to introduce our president, Dr. Casey Cable, here at Raritan Valley Community College. I was fortunate to have been in the original spring 2011 Poverty and Society class here at RVCC, taught by our professor, Yulissa. In the social science department chaired by Dr. Karen Gutshaw. I now have the honor to tell you about Dr. Casey Cable, who has been involved with our poverty and society class and activities since those beginning stages, which has resulted in our college community empowerment project and Voices of Poverty events. Because of her encouragement, guidance, wisdom, and support for this important diversity incentives here on campus. It gives me great honor to present and thank her from the bottom of my heart, our president and my good friend, Dr. Casey Cable.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. As important as this kind of event and discussions about economic issues in our country, as important as those things are, it's unfortunate that they don't happen very often. So I was very impressed in the first round of the symposium when I heard not only the level of student discussion, but the obvious learning and the application of learning to thinking about their future that the students displayed. And it struck me in that very first conversation that this is really the essence of higher education, for people to take a critical look at the world around them and apply that critical perspective to the development of their own lives. So why it doesn't happen other places, I'm not really sure, but I'm very glad that it happens here. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this important event and to encourage you to not only listen but to grow for yourselves as you hear from our students, as you hear from our speakers, and as you witness what I think is really transformational education. I'd like to thank Karen and Alicia. They never, ever walk away from this project. They make sure that we continue to think about how we can expand the students that are involved in this. I'd like to thank the students who I know have worked really hard on remarks that you'll present today, but also on the way that you've approached really with vigor your time on campus and developing the kind of education that I know will carry you very, very far. And I'd also like to compliment whoever designed the shirts, because I think they're really outstanding. And it's nice because, sure, it's fun to have like a club shirt, but it's also a way to let other people know as you wear them that things are happening on campus, that there are groups of students that are engaged in really important work. So congratulations to all who are presenting and who are participating. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll continue to support RVCC's effort to bring real education to our community. Thanks very much.
Good morning. I'm Yulissa, and I have the wonderful opportunity of working with these students in the Poverty and Society class. Before we get started, though, I think it's really important, and we will have a much larger crowd, and I wish we could do this at that point in time. But I would like us to collectively thank Dr. Cable for her phenomenal, exceptional service to this institution, and wish her much happiness and much success as she moves forward to her new presidency. I'm assuming you all know that she will be departing here, and it will be a huge loss at the college, but I think today we need to recognize Dr. President Cable. I'm going to be brief because there's so many wonderful people who are going to speak today. But these kinds of activities don't just happen, of course. There's been tremendous community coming together, and that's kind of the essence of what we do. So I'd just like to first thank the sponsors of this lovely event. And we're the early birds. There's going to be a large number of people forthcoming. So your money will be well spent. On behalf of all of us, our appreciation to the Raritan Valley Community College Foundation, to the Department of Human Services, Social Sciences, and Education, the Office of the Dean of Academic Affairs, the Office of Student Life, the Office of the Dean of Multicultural Affairs, Norwest Cap, and United Way of Northern New Jersey. Together, they made this day possible, so we owe them much gratitude. I would also like, obviously, to thank the students, the leadership team that comes together and meets and puts these events forward. But I'm really up here to tell you really quickly about what's going to happen this day, and that would include breaks and where the restrooms are, so that's very important, correct? We don't, as you note, have any official breaks scheduled because this is designed to become a community of family behavior. So you may excuse yourself whenever you wish to do so. We hope you come back. But restrooms, for those of you who have no idea, are exit the door and they are to your left. There is coffee available today. This is a bake sale to benefit our club, SEPSA. All of our proceeds go to help our under-resourced students get through the barriers that they face. So there's coffee available, but for those of you who want something not poverty-related, being a very special cappuccino, you could head down to our brouhaha. If you go to the Welcome Center, it's just down the hallway, and get whatever wonderful joke you'd like to have. To call this a symposium on poverty is interesting in that poverty has so many different faces and so many different levels. What we're focusing on is building social capital, building relationships, building bonds that we find when you do that within a village of community, you can eradicate most anything much more effectively. So what we do is applicable to any level of poverty when you consider doing it at the micro level. Our students are both resourced and under-resourced students, and they come together and they tell their stories. And they learn trust, they build integrity, they build relationship through the lens of socioeconomic class. And when we find that we sit together through our various backgrounds that are very different, how we grow up, where we grow up, who our daddy is, all of these background variables that sometimes separate us. When we come together in our classroom, we learn how very much alike we all are. And we build that community and we support ourselves. So today you're going to hear wonderful voices of several students who are here. A couple of them are on their way because they have children that they have to get off to school, so you can understand their difficulties with morning classes. They'll be here shortly. In moving this forward, I would like to introduce our wonderful first student speaker, Casey Isherwood. She is a member of Poverty and Society this semester. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Everyone has a story, and no story is the same. Some people have grown up in poverty, and some people grow up in comfortable finances. Fortunately for me, I grew up in a very comfortable home. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor, and for the most part, I have gotten everything I have ever wanted. Sounds spoiled, right? Well, I was. I grew up in Piscataway, New Jersey, in a comfortable neighborhood. Everyone knew everyone. My house was a pretty good size, and I had every Barbie doll I could ever want. I was in second grade when my mom and dad decided to get a bigger house in a more prestigious area, so we moved to Reddington. I remember like it was yesterday when it was moving day, and I ran up the acre of green grass all the way to the house. My house was huge. It was grand and beautiful, something I could show off to my friends. I didn't think life could get any better or more perfect. I was good at being spoiled, a professional, a princess. I had the perfect family. I had a mom, a dad, a brother, 2 dogs, a horse. The list goes on. Just writing about what I had brings a smile upon my face. Yes, I had, past tense. Nothing lasts forever, I would find out 8 years later. The seams came undone, I believe, in 2009. My father started getting more and more DUIs, and before I knew it, he was winding up in jail for months at a time. My mother kept bailing him out, and soon enough, we were borrowing money from my grandparents. The bills kept piling up for my father's frequent hospitalization due to his over-drinking. He actually drove into a nail salon right in White House Station on Main Street due to his intoxication. That's when my friends found out. I don't think I've ever loved a man so much, even with such flaws. He was my dad. How could I not love him? He was the one who would come up to me when I was crying and give me a long talk about how proud he was of me and how much he loved me. A couple court dates and DUIs later, my mom kicked him out. There was an incident where my brother and I had to call the cops because of his drunkenness. My poor mother, what an angel. She tried so hard to hide it from us, but it was all bound to come out sooner or later. And my brother, my hero. If there was any other man other than my dad who I knew would protect me, it was my brother. I loved my brother so much. He would hide me in his room when my dad was intoxicated. He would shelter me and ultimately grew into a father figure to me. I'm not saying my dad was abusive or mean. He was just a drunk. When my mom kicked him out, my dad became homeless. He had nothing but a few $100 that my pop-up, just his father, gave him, along with my mom giving him his unemployment checks. Skipping ahead, my dad would call me up or text me with his soon-to-be-canceled phone. He would usually call me up either from jail or from his hotel room, letting me know how much he loves me. And when he gets better, things will be perfect again. He would remind me to pray for him and make sure my mom doesn't divorce him. Unfortunately, I could only do so much. Finally, my mom had to file for divorce. A couple months later, we received a phone call. Some people found my dad by the side of a pond or lake dead. He drank himself to death. Nothing but a few memories, letters from jail, and his ashes remained of him. I was heartbroken. He had died on May 24th, 2011, exactly a month before he turned 50. I didn't think my life could get any more difficult than my dad dying and the bank being dry. On March 2nd, 2012, my brother committed suicide. There is so much to the story that it would take pages and pages to write about. He struggled with depression, and his birth mother did drugs and drank while she was pregnant with him, which had a lot to do with it. My mom found him with his arms crossed, with a bag over his head, along with pills on his computer desk. He had left a note written on it on the computer. It said something to everyone he cared about. He wrote to me that I'm a good person and I need to take care of my mom. He wrote to my boyfriend Austin that he has his blessing to be with his sister. He wrote to my mom how sorry he is and how much he loves her. He had Asperger's and struggled with deep depression. His online friends talk about how he wanted to take my mom and me along with him so we wouldn't have to suffer. But I knew, in the end, my brother could never do that. But today, my mom is happily engaged. In my new home we moved to in Flemington, it is my mom, her fiance Steve, his daughter, myself, and my fiance Austin. Under the circumstances, I couldn't be any happier. I'm dedicated to becoming a social worker and doing whatever I can to help out other families. It has become a passion. It sounds perfect again, but it'll never be perfect. But I'm okay with that. At least I'm learning to be okay with that. I still have my brother's ashes, along with all of his clothes and his favorite hat. I'll never get over what happened in these short years, but life must go on. I didn't believe in writing about just poverty, because poverty, I believe, comes with a background, a history, and a story. My story is not a tragedy, it is a blessing. I would never be who I am today without my angels above and those humbling moments. And there is nothing more humbling. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Rekha Peterson-Gaines, and I'm always honored to be welcomed back to Voices of Poverty. There are many days I felt as though my poverty-stricken life would overtake my desires and greater purpose I have on this earth. I have been down to nothing and up to my neck in bills and in debt to others many times over. I have gone through school with challenges that will cause the average person to give up. I believe that my trials and tribulations are for a greater purpose. I often wonder, when we think of strength, do we simply describe this as something one has to help them overcome? Or do we acknowledge that it is the overcoming which gives us strength? I have gained a substantial amount of strength while I have been here at RVCC, not to mention the growth and understanding that I have come to know. In my poems, I speak of many aspects of poverty. I would like to share one of my poems with you this morning, but before I do, I would like to extend my gratitude to all who played a great part in my development as a student, someone who has been affected by poverty, yet given hope by many, and I will be forever grateful. Silent cries. The silent cries of desperation seen amongst the crowd, not speaking with their natural tongue, but their eyes seem to scream aloud, filling up with dreadful tears and swollen lids, unable to satisfy the hunger of their starving kids. They cried out through anger and madness, and realizing the deficit they face, I became overwhelmed in my heart with sadness. I looked to my left and to my right, only to find such an awful sight. A lonely child roaming the streets at night. I asked her, "Where are your parents?" She begins to tell me about her unforgettable scars and how she likes to look up at the stars, which help her to escape the reality of where they are. She says to me, "They are at the track and the gun is ready to shoot. The brownish and tan horse is ready to jump through the hoop. Once it reaches the line of its destination, once again, she will deal with mood swings and procrastination." As they sit and wait for the next location, at that moment, using total incomplete concentration, I stopped and realized exactly what track she meant, the one where it leaves a spoon bent. The lighter that leads to total desperation, the epidemic that has swept across our nation. The silent cry she let me hear at that moment helped me become aware. The reason her parents were not there, they were off getting high somewhere. I was heartbroken and had to look away, only to see the boy I ran into yesterday. This was a very interesting cry he expressed. He said with his eyes and under his breath, "I can't deal with this anymore, and I don't understand. All I try to do is show her I'm a man. I sell these pebbles that destroy hopes and dreams, trying to show my mother I am a part of the team. The one that gave up his jeans to get me here, I looked up one day and he wasn't there. I just want Mom to know that I care. She tells me to get out of her house. Why does she try to run me away like a scared mouse? I looked at him and said, 'What do you do?' He said, 'Hold on, I will show you.' A man walked up with an unbearable stench and said, 'Let me get it on credit. I don't have the bread.' The young boy says, 'Nah, no can do. Bring me $8 and I'll take care of you.' He said, 'I can only probably get 5. The young boy turned around with an uncompassionate look in his eye. He told the man, 'I guess you can't get high.' I told him, 'You don't have to do this.' He said, 'Lady, for me, this is it. I have no education and no skills to get a job. I'd rather do this than go out and rob. So go away and don't sell me no pipe dream. The only pipe I know is used by these fiends.' I dropped my head and walked home at night, realizing I had seen such a horrible sight. These are the children of our generation, crying out in desperation, and these cries sweep across the nation. Does it take for it to be in your own backyard? For us to realize we must fight hard to help them avoid these detrimental scars. All I could do was pray that night and cry, asking God, why? Then suddenly I opened my eyes once I truly came to realize and accept responsibility to reach out and show them what they couldn't see. All hope is not lost, and I do understand. Your children are hungry, your parents are strung out, and you're trying to be a man. Let me show you to a shelter with food and a place to sleep. Let me reach out to a social worker to get this poor girl off the streets. Possibly get her parents to a program and show this boy that's not what it takes to be a man. Reaching out is truly the key for all things I saw which truly disturbed me. At that moment, I realized what it takes for us to open our eyes and truly awake. To the single mothers and fathers who can't feed their kids, to the children who suffer because of a parent addicted, to the same thing the boy was selling on the corner, to show that young man a way to live longer, to give hope to the hopeless and faith to the faithless. Allowing God through you to make a difference is truly amazing. These scenarios I gave aren't all the way true. I didn't experience these interactions, but maybe you do. So the next time you are in the position to make a difference, ask yourself, what can I do with this existence I have been given? Will I be selfish and keep what gifts I have been blessed with? Or will I use them and make sure they're invested? And to someone who feels overwhelmed and silently cries, I need help on learning how to keep my mind, body, spirit, and soul alive. I dare say you will have a peace with yourself, knowing that you did your best in extending your help. So from now on, when you walk into the crowd and hear the silent cries, don't ignore them and act like they don't exist. Take some time to reminisce. Think about this poem I just read and choose to help someone instead. Not because I said you should, but because God placed us here to do good. Good for ourselves and one another, to help our fellow sisters and brothers, to always look out for others and do the best we can to love our neighbor, to help be a part of God's favor. This is an ultimate blessing to everyone, showing the love of God showed to us when he gave up his one and only son. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. What I'm going to read for you is a journal that goes back to September last semester here at Raritan Valley, and then to a current update of what has occurred in the last short 6 months of my life. Okay, my first journal entry is September 2012. I'm sorry, before I start, Professor Liss, in her class of Poverty and Society, were asked to write this on the first evening of her class. Who am I? Why am I here? And how has poverty impacted my life? And that's what these will explain. I'm Jessica Pruitt, a 30-year-old woman who's been blessed with two beautiful little girls, Shaylee, 7, and Yulissa, 4. I'm a woman who loves life today, which is something I was unable to say for so long. I'm a strong woman determined to make a difference somewhere in the world. I am a woman who has experienced a lot of devastating moments in life and feels sometimes there's no way out. I'm a Warren County Drug Court participant since 2006. I'm an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a woman today who is willing to do anything so I never have to experience the life without the people I love in it. I'm a woman who knows it is time to stop being a menace to society and instead be someone positive. I am a loving daughter, a caring mother, a supporting friend, a trusting companion, and much more. This is who I am just for today. I am Jessica Pruitt. Why am I here? I'm here because I've come to a point in my life where I'm tired of being labeled as another number in some treatment program or jail. I'm here because I took a huge leap of faith a couple of months ago and quit working for the first time in my life to come back to school and further my education. I'm here because I'm tired of being convinced that due to the poor choices I've made in my past, I will never amount to anything. I'm here because I am finally able to ask for help and for someone to show me the direction I need to take to get back into school. I'm also here because when I heard of this class, and it was suggested for me to take, and I heard of the things that were covered in Poverty and Society, I knew that I had to enroll in it. It was like that moment coming true where I heard exactly what I needed to hear and what I'd been waiting for all this time. I'm here because I'd like to break a cycle of destruction that has run throughout my family for generations, so my children have a chance of something better. I'm here because I arrived at a point in my life where I'm ready to stop taking my blessings for granted and become whatever it is the Lord intended me to be. Because by all means, I should be 6 feet under. I'm here to live a dream for those who no longer have the opportunity to live their own, for those who have left us before their time, and to show myself I am worth much more than I would have ever liked to believe. I'm here because God saw fit for me to do something other than being a convicted felon rotting in a prison cell or someone who will once again fail to this devastating disease. How has poverty impacted my life? If you would have asked me this question before my first Poverty and Society class, my answer would have been that poverty no longer impacts my life since I stopped using drugs and alcohol. Boy, did I quickly realize how wrong I was. I've come to realize that not only one class in Poverty and Society, that my life has still very much impoverished and has been for quite some time. I grew up with a lot of dysfunction, mostly caused by my father's alcohol and drug addiction, and by the time when I reached the age of 13, I was abused by my father, leaving me in an everlasting cycle of PTSD and one parent left to raise me. My mom always made our living arrangements seem so comfortable, I would have never noticed that we were living in a life of poverty. What I would have thought poverty to look like would be drunks sleeping on the street, prostitutes walking the block making money to support their habits or feed their children, food lines of hungry families, and these things were not ones that I saw in the little country town I grew up in. Poverty still impacted my life in so many ways, and still in so many ways, I had surrendered adoption of my oldest daughter to my mother in 2007 because of my active addiction. The past 7 years I have spent cycling in and out of prison and institutions, halfway houses, and numerous of other programs throughout the state of New Jersey. At this time, I am still unable to provide for my children or myself. As a result of that, I live in my mother's home with hopes that someday I'll be able to afford my own. My only means of contribution to my family's expenses are a small amount of food stamps and unemployment benefits that I receive. My being here in college as a full-time student is amazing in itself, and when I stand here and talk about being blessed or finding my way, I mean just that and so much more. I wrote this on April 20th, a couple of days ago. Who am I? Today I am still Jessica Pruitt, a 31-year-old woman who has 2 beautiful daughters who are everything in this world to me. I am a woman who walks through life with her head held high instead of down. I am a full-time student at RVCC in my 2nd semester. I am a member of Phi Theta Kappa's National Honor Society, and I am also a member of SEPSA, currently working in the communications team. I am an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am a woman who can stand up in front of you today without shame and remorse and tell you the stories of my life that I swore I would never share with anyone. I am Jessica Pruitt, and I am someone today. I am here today because a very inspiring woman in my life that I didn't even know a year ago asked me to come and share some of my life experiences with all of you. I am honored to be here and do just that, and I hope that someone in this audience can gain something from my story. I've always been told if I want to keep what I have, then I must be willing to give it away. One very inspiring story I'd like to share is how much my life has changed since the first journal that I wrote 6 months ago. I've met some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life here at RVCC. I made a lot of new friends, friends that invite me into their homes, friends that invite me to their weddings, and to share special moments with them. I've been inducted into the National Honor Society of Phi Theta Kappa chapter here on campus. I also helped start and organize an AA meeting here on campus that is held every Monday. Only 3 weeks ago, excuse me, my paper's stuck. And a week ago, I graduated from Warren County Drug Court after 7 long years on the program. I am here because I am no longer facing 7 to 15 years in state prison, and I'm going to live today. How does poverty impact my life? Well, I'm sad to say this, but as much as I love my mom, my daughters and I are still living at home. and I still have not worked since June of last year. My contributions are still slim in the home. My family expenses are less. My contributions are less than they were 6 months ago. My food stamps and unemployments are being cut off and decreased every time I turn around. And I'm happy to say that I am full of life, love, and happiness, and all the money in the world can't buy those things for me today. So while I'm here in school furthering my education to help me along my journey of life that I know I can now live, I continue to watch it unfold before my eyes, and maybe next year I'll be here to share some more exciting stories with all of you.
I'm a crier, so. Hello, my name is Yulissa Sutphen, and I'll be sharing with you my first journal I wrote in the beginning of my poverty and society class, and my last journal I wrote. Here's the first one. Poverty is hurtful, shameful, and heartless. She is cruel and unforgettable. Sometimes a single experience with it can be a motivation behind a success story, but most of the time, she is the reason why life itself is a living nightmare. My name is Yulissa, and I know poverty like I know my name. I am here because, like many more, I look for a way out. I'm studying to become an active social worker so I can try to help people like myself. I am a struggling mother of 3 small children that see their father once a week. Their father is the $100 bill I get for child support once a week. I am the face of the many young Hispanic women that confront daily obstacles to fulfill a dream. My encounter with poverty began the second I was born. My mother had 5 children with an abusive, cheating spouse. She said he would leave to get diapers and milk and would return until days or even weeks later. I was born in Bellevue Hospital in New York City in December of '83. My teen mom sent 4 of her 5 children to Dominican Republic because she could not afford to feed us, let alone raise us. Over the years, I forgot the face of the woman I called Mom, and I began the life as a motherless child with my grandparents. I lived in the poorest area where water was so scarce that we had to collect rainwater in tanks to shower, cook, and drink. Every now and then, my grandmother and myself would walk down to the river with our baskets of laundry to hand-wash cloth diapers from my baby cousins and my baby brothers, the youngest. Now at 28, I get flashbacks of our times by the river every time I wash and bleach my linen. As I got older, my grandmother realized I shouldn't spend so much time at home and I needed an education. One day, a letter reached our home, and I saw my grandmother's eyes watering. She gave me a hug, and about a week later, I was on the bus to my aunt's house. I remember vividly how mean this lady was. I felt like Cinderella, always dreaming and always cleaning. This woman was a neat freak, and any time she felt the house wasn't clean enough for my cousins, my siblings and I had a butt whooping. I cried almost every night. I hated her, and I started hating my mom for leaving me there. I used to wonder, what did I do for her to leave me? I wonder, was she beautiful? And how did she look when she cried or smiled? I came to the United States when I was 10, going on 11. I was shy and always afraid to speak, laugh, or even be noticed. Eventually, my mom explained that she couldn't afford any of us, so she had to do what she did. My mother's facial expression as she told her excuse was hurtful. She looked cold and almost proud of what she did. But for me, I wanted to fight her and make her pay for ruining my childhood. For the longest time, I called my mother by her first name as a punishment. Of course, she didn't know that. My mother caused me a lot of heartache and depression, but the real pain came from the man that made me, my father. One night, my mother was out playing bingo because she thought bingo would pay for rent. My father asked me to come and sit on his lap. He began the conversation with smiles and loving gestures until his hand began to move from my long hair to my small breasts and then my thighs. These type words are just that for you, but for me is a sense of reality. I'm trying to write down for you to understand what poverty has done for me. For the next 5 years of my life, I was molested, beaten, and degraded by my father. You might wonder why I blame poverty for my misfortunes and not my parents, but the truth is that if my family wasn't poor, I wouldn't have had these issues. My mother would have kept us together. She would have left the loser man she loved, and she would have loved me. I lost the opportunity to have a healthy, happy childhood in both of my parents, and all I gained over the years from my past is anger. Now, a mother myself, I got exactly what I was running from. The man I married divorced me and left me with 3 babies after 7 years of cheating and beatings. Ironically, this is comfortable because I've been here before through my mother's life. I can identify and imitate everything she went through. I can't see a beautiful woman. I can't see a successful woman. I can't see my dreams and goals. All I see in the mirror is a broken, beat-down, and single parent, still believing that hope will overcome the struggle. When I'm done drying my tears, I say, how sad, because that's all I see in me. Now I'm going to read you my last, final journal. The hardest times I have faced can't compare to how I felt taking this class. Facing myself and the issues I have to work on made me finally see that the way I'm living is not okay. There are solutions and better opportunities. Some of my habits are harmful and contribute to the cycle that keeps me in poverty. I'm not sure how much of it is my fault and how much of it is out of my control, but the first step towards recovery is realizing what you're doing wrong. I came into this class assuming it would just be another course to take, so I didn't. To my surprise, I have learned real lessons from my real-life problems. I never really cared about the grade or the credits, to be honest. But one day I heard the professor say, education is your only way out, there is no other way. I was daydreaming, but hearing those words, I guess, woke up something inside of me. The fear of having my kids struggle the way we do, and the sadness of knowing I have potential to be more are my motivation. I always say if anyone gave me the opportunity, I will prove everyone wrong and show them what I can do. I have realized through this course that I can only change me. Although some things I cannot fix alone, I know that I am in control and no one owes me anything. I owe myself the opportunity to achieve my goals and use my education for something that will place me in a better financial situation and give me the confidence I never had. I want to be financially stable, emotionally satisfied, and knowledgeable of values that can help me stay focused and secure. I don't want to continue hoping and wishing I tried harder. Professors today forget who they teach. They worry so much about the syllabus and so much about the syllabus that they forget there's a person behind the homework and exams. Building relationships with professors seem harder to do when your life is falling apart. But now I can confront the question of who am I? Dreaming of the future will never get me there. My actions will. Today, I am scared and yet determined to pass the hard times. I am a single parent willing to do anything for my kids, someone loyal and true to their goals. I am many things to those looking from the outside in, but I am not a statistic. I am not an underachiever, and I will prove it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, supporting us. My name is Lisa. I am 53 years old, and never in my life did I think I would be in college. I have a son who is 27 and lives in California. I just got married to my second husband for the second time. We live in a house owned by a friend, and it's in foreclosure. We don't pay rent, we pay for all the utilities. Living in 3 bedrooms, I don't have a kitchen. I cook out of an electric skillet and a toaster oven. I do the dishes in the bathroom sink. I turn lights off, thermostat is set at 62, and we have little heaters we turn on depending on what room we're in. I pay cash for everything and buy my clothes at a local thrift store. I am a full-time student collecting unemployment. My husband is in construction, and some weeks he works and some weeks he doesn't. His body is beat up, but he doesn't complain. Neither of us have health insurance, nor are we getting any younger. We don't have any kind of savings for retirement, and I realize we'll be working into our 70s. There were times in my life that I was financially secure, and other times when I lived paycheck to paycheck. I went bankrupt about 3 years ago. I wasn't raised in a low-income family. My father was a very wealthy man. He was chief of surgeons at St. Peter's Hospital in New Brunswick and had his own practice there as well. My mother was a beautiful woman, much younger than my dad, and did some modeling in New York before they got married. She was 19, he was 36. We would travel to Italy twice a year and lived in a very big house in Bridgewater. This all sounds wonderful on paper. Big parties at my house for all the nurses and doctors, traveling to Europe, season tickets to the Met. We even had the Monsignor over once in a while for dinner when my father would make large donations to the church. My father was very well known in the area, and people spoke highly of him. Sounds like a dream childhood. The reality, my father sneaky, my mother an alcoholic. The lies and deceit are something that reads like a novel. The truth is, we never went to church. And all those trips to Europe was a way for my father to smuggle cash out of the country and not pay taxes. From about 5 years old, my mother would dress me in expensive little dresses, my black patent leather shoes, but under all this frill, I'd be wearing a money belt stuffed with cash. My father and mother would follow suit, and we would march onto the huge Italian cruise ship, having dinners with the captain, and sail away for the next 7 days to our destination, the Swiss bank. We would do little traveling, mostly visiting friends of my father's. He had bought a villa in Lake Lugano on the side of the mountains, 15 minutes away from the Swiss border. My family from the outside looked to be perfect, picture perfect. Yes, we had money, but morally, emotionally, and spiritually, we were corrupt and bankrupt. My father had affairs throughout the marriage, but it all came to an end when I was 12. My mother went for the money, but my father was not going to let that happen. He took and sold everything from stocks and bonds to real estate, forged signatures, and moved to his villa in Italy with his mistress. He needed to be near his money and left my mother with 2 kids, no child support, and a house she couldn't pay taxes on. She hadn't worked in 14 years. She went into a deep depression and was hospitalized a few times. Her drinking and prescription pill taking was spiraling out of control, and she had tried to commit suicide a number of times. By now, I was 13 years old and full of hate and anger. I acted out during high school, ran away from home a couple of times, never went to school, started drinking and using drugs. By the time I graduated high school, which is a miracle in itself, I was 17 and moved to New York. I felt as if I had arrived. This is where I wanted to be. I was bartending and making my own way. I met a guy who stole credit cards for a living, and we lived off of that for a while until we got caught, and I was charged with possession of stolen property. I was running the streets, going to clubs, and my drug use became a major problem. After 5 years on my own, I found myself in a Pennsylvania rehab for 90 days, undernourished and yellow from hepatitis. I was 22. It would take me another 2 years before the loneliness and despair of addiction brought me to my knees. In July of 1984, I decided to try to get clean. I was 24 years old and very sick, physically and emotionally. My first year of sobriety, I had gotten pregnant and married my first husband. By my second year, we had divorced. I had a little baby and no clue how to raise him. But this little boy changed my life. Some days I would just look at him and he would give me the strength to move forward. I managed to get support from men and women in AA, but when it came to paying bills, that was on me. I manipulated my schedule around raising my son. When he was very small, I watched children in my house so I could stay home with him and make some money. When he was old enough to go to school, I got my CDL and drove a school bus so I could be home for him. I put myself on hold to raise him in a way I was not raised. I didn't have any money. I had food stamps and some welfare, but I was there emotionally and physically. I set out to change old behaviors that were installed in me, and I was not going to abandon my son. When he became old enough to stay home for a few hours by himself, I started working in an office. My son eventually graduated high school and continued on to college. He was independent and on his own. I felt I had succeeded in something in life, and that was being a good mom. My whole life, I went from one relationship to another, looking for some kind of stability. For one reason or another, I ended up leaving these relationships and was forced to file bankruptcy. I was way over my head financially, and by myself, I could not keep up with the debt. Once again, I was back driving a school bus after working in an office for years. My son decided to move to California and go back to school. I was so proud of him to be so free-spirited and grown up. Then I got a phone call, a voice I thought I'd never hear again. It was my second husband from 17 years ago. He told me he had just gotten sober again after years and years of use and abuse. We decided to meet. After a few dates, I knew my life was about to change again. He was full of hope and had a way to make me laugh. We picked up right where we left off 17 years ago. We dated for a few years, and I realized I had to have a plan if I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. This was the one man that truly loved me and I him. He was financially broke, but morally and spiritually rich. I only have a high school education. I have life skills, and I know I had to do something to better my education to get a better job. Then it hit me one day driving my high school students home from school. Some of these kids need help. I could hear the anger, frustration, and fear that was all too familiar to me. The feeling of being lost and not fitting in the feeling of being lost and not fitting in that so many kids try to numb by using drugs and alcohol. At the end of the school year, my bus company lost the contract for the school district, and I was out of a job. This was the best thing that could have happened to me. I decided to go to college. All I know is how to be a mom and recovery. I went to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and was granted full tuition for college. I not only started college that year, but I also started classes for my certified alcohol and drug counseling certificate. Doors have been flying open for me. People have been come into my life, helping me and guiding me through this new chapter of my life. The first A I ever received was in math class. I sat and cried. What a gift. I was told I would never amount to anything. I now sit working towards a degree. The drive and passion I have to help teens is immeasurable. My living situation is not perfect, but we get by. Our cars run and are paid for, and there's food in the fridge. My son is happy, healthy, and living his dream. God has me on a journey that has brought me to a place where, because of my experiences, I can help others, and I am grateful for what I do have. Yes, I've been divorced with a child. I've had to make ends meet and go through social services and food stamps. I've been to food pantries. There have been months where I could not pay rent. But all of this makes me stronger and grow from my mistakes, and I've become a better person for that. I wouldn't trade my life for anyone.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Bickel, and I am so excited to be here and be a part of this important event. What seems like a lifetime ago, I graduated from high school, went to college, entered the workforce, raised a family, and worked on my career, and thought my life was going as planned. Until November 2012, when I was told my job had been eliminated. I'd been with the company for 25 years. I was given a severance package and in December had to leave what I thought was my safe place. Today, I realized that this was the best thing that could have happened. I have been given the opportunity to pursue a career that I am passionate about, and to begin the second chapter of my life. I now have a life with more meaning and enthusiasm, knowing that I am right where God wants me to be. I have given up much of my life for my family and my career. It is now time for me to take control and be true to myself. So how does poverty impact me? It has been around me. My first husband left me with 2 small children and no financial support. I've never had to be on the street because I did always have a job. But there were times when I didn't have soap to bathe them. My car had been repossessed. I came home to an eviction notice. And there have been many times where I couldn't pay the bills. So was this poverty? For me, there were times in my life that I felt impoverished. Poverty can be defined as lacking something. I have lacked self-esteem, self-worth, a sense of value, along with the financial resources to provide for me and my children. Sorry. I have no idea how the future will unfold for me, but I have goals and good intention. I am viewing life differently than I did when I was younger. I am looking at myself and beginning to understand my relationship to things. Things are things, and that's all they are. People, now that's what life is really about. Thinking back, my dad always knew that. He was a caring, compassionate man and my role model. He would never let his children go to bed hungry. My 36-year-old brother was dying of a brain tumor. There was little hope for survival, and he had no quality of life. He could no longer speak, see, hear, and he was wearing a diaper, which my mother was changing him, and we hope he didn't know. He didn't understand that. The doctor suggested that the feeding tube be taken out and to let him die. You see, the longer the feeding tube was in and he was receiving nourishment, the longer it would be before he died. With tears in his eyes, Dad stood there in front of the doctor and emphatically stated, "My son will not starve to death. The feeding tube will stay in, and we will continue to feed him." I don't really know the impact that hunger had on my dad. I wish I had asked him. It must have been pretty powerful. Dad never complained or made judgment on anyone, and the impact of hunger was such that he would never allow his children to experience it. I would like to take his legacy and pay it forward. This is the United States of America. People should never feel hunger unless they choose to do so. It has to stop now, and if I can make a difference for one or many, that is what I want to do. I have joined SEPSA with the hope that I will be able to begin my journey to stomp out hunger and poverty. It saddens me to know that there are RVCC students who come to school hungry, without many of the basic human needs, and that some are homeless. I have had many life experiences, including addiction, major depression, many losses, physical and sexual abuse, to name a few, and know that I am being called to do something to help people. I had no idea what that would look like, but I thought I probably needed some education. So I applied to RVCC and enrolled in the Human Services Pre-Social Work program. I thought it could be a start of the second phase of my life. I enrolled in 3 courses. One is Poverty and Society with Professor Liss. This course has meant more to me than any other learning opportunity that I can remember. When I enrolled, I had no idea what I was getting into, being an older student. If you told me this class would change my life, the direction of my life, and create new and exciting passion, I probably would have said, well, okay, I'm open to new possibilities, but I am pretty sure that this change won't occur in my first semester. I am just starting this journey, and I need time to feel things out. This is all new to me. Remember, I haven't been in school for a really long time. How wrong I would have been. There's not been one class period that I did not learn something new about poverty and about myself. The degree of poverty in this country, the inadequacies of our system to support those in need, the knowledge of how this has occurred, the awareness of poverty, the discrimination that exists against those who are poor, our inadequate healthcare system, the knowledge of how the financial sector is running our lives, and the decisions being made by our government is unforgettable and unbelievable. With this knowledge, I have felt appalled. I have cried. I have been disgusted. I have been shocked, and I am so angry. This is not the America that I grew up in so many years ago. The statistics for poverty are alarming and unimaginable. I was raised in a middle-class white-collar family. I didn't see people living on the street. I never saw someone hungry, and it was never discussed. When I turned 21 and moved out of my parents' home, I was still unaware of poverty, hunger, and the uninsured. I was in my own world, doing my own thing, and quite honestly, pretty ignorant of what was going on around me. And then in January of 2013, I started to learn about the world around me. I began learning about those who were struggling in poverty. I feel so much compassion and passion for this, and in some way, I feel I have contributed to the shambles it is in. Did I really know who I was voting for and why? Not really. I was ignorant. The definition of ignorant is lacking knowledge or awareness in general uneducated, or unsophisticated. I was raised well, educated, and somewhat sophisticated, I think, and lacked the knowledge and awareness of the horrible situations that are going on around me. Yes, I am changing because of this inspiring class. I will never look at someone sitting on the street begging, or sleeping on a bench, or pushing a grocery cart, or shabbily clothed the same way again. I will become more aware of politics and the decisions our government is making. If I don't like them, they will hear about it. I will be part of eliminating poverty in our school, our community, and our nation. It may be one baby step at a time, but I will work hard with each step. I will fight for the rights of all people to have appropriate health care, appropriate housing, food, clothing, and safety. I could wish I was younger and knew then what I know now, but that wouldn't do me or anyone else any good. So with the life I have left, I will do my best to eliminate poverty and make others aware of the travesties of our nation. Thank you for listening, and together we can change this dreadful situation.
The right man, the one I could love forever, and who would be the best father to the children we both wanted. We fell in love and became best of friends. My husband was a bricklayer by trade, learning his craft from his father and grandfather. He had gone to college and achieved a degree in marketing, but he loved the trade he was taught by his family. So he did without, but lived a comfortable lifestyle. We had gotten married and moved in with his father because he did not want to leave him alone. He had lost his mom and brother, and his dad was the only one he had left. Soon after our marriage, we found ourselves in the depths of infertility, suffering 5 miscarriages, and told we would have less than a 1% chance of conceiving naturally. So we started our marriage in debt, but willing to take it on for the chance of a family. We were then blessed with our daughter, our miracle, and then our other miracle, another girl. While my friends from childhood were experiencing their children entering into their teenage years, I was changing diapers and now a stay-at-home mom. It was all I ever wanted. That lasted for a few short months when I found myself now being the caregiver to my husband, who had just suffered a major heart attack. Through the next several years, he suffered a few more episodes. I learned how to be a mom, a daughter-in-law, and a guardian of my husband's health. We lived meagerly, raising our girls, until one night in March of 2009, my husband of 10 years started seizing from a meningioma and was later pronounced brain dead. We were now a family of 3, plus Grandpa. Through all of his heart issues, he dies of a benign brain tumor. What a cruel twist of fate. I was now a mom, dad, organ donor family, and most importantly, a young widow. Our world was changed forever. Our world was shattered. Now remember, I was a stay-at-home mom now. We now had no health benefits, no paycheck, and no substantial life insurance. Since Mark had the heart attack, we could not raise his basic policy that he had. I was now reliant on Social Security benefits for the girls and me, and state health benefits for my girls. I was not eligible since we received too much in Social Security benefits to be eligible. So I pay out of pocket for my benefits for myself. This is necessary because now I needed to make sure I remained healthy and covered, not only for my own benefit, but for my girls, who now only have a mom. It is also important to note that I grew up in a nuclear family with 2 sisters who worked for all that we had and possessed. I was raised by parents who experienced the Depression and were raised by strong working families with a strong sense of self-reliance. Now here's their daughter accepting state and federal benefits, something they had never done. During our grief, I decided it was time for me to go back to college to receive the education and degree that would one day allow me to support my family. I have been here at RVCC studying and now focused on a degree toward social work. That would not have been possible without the financial aid I receive and the scholarships. I could not have taken on that debt. Through the graciousness of others, I have been able to attend college up to this point debt-free, something many of my fellow students cannot say. So now I have taken on a new role: mom, dad, daughter-in-law, childhood grief advocate, organ donor advocate, and student. But while I was grieving, my unmarried sister, who had just bought a new house, was now unemployed. She struggled to pay her bills, but something always fell short. Since her unemployment, she has lost her car, had her TV service turned off, has not been paying her mortgage, and rides a bike to her minimum paying job that can only offer her about 25 hours per week. She receives food stamps, has no health insurance, and is waiting for her house to be taken from her too. She has suffered major depression and could not be there to even support her two nieces in their time of grief. So while I'm feeling sorry for myself, at least I had a roof over my head through the graciousness of my father-in-law. My sister does not have that sense of security. So although I know she is not my responsibility, I am now the support system for my sister too. It has been 4 years since the death of my husband, Mark. I have been here at RVCC for 3 of those years and have found my niche, my comfortable place in this institution. I will graduate this May and plan on embarking on my new educational goal, my bachelor's degree from Rutgers, fingers crossed. My girls and I have weathered many storms together and continue to find additional strengths that lie within us. My girls never cease to amaze me. Their strength and resilience is an inspiration to anyone who knows them. They are my strength and my inspiration. I have found that even with many adversities they face in their short lives, they will be okay. They will be stronger for what they have gone through and hopefully find it in themselves to one day give back. Poverty in society has been an eye-opening experience for me. I have discovered that in the 2 richest counties in the United States, we have here on campus such a deserving and under-resourced population that it would surprise almost everyone. These students are striving for an education that would improve their lives, yet they must fight a system that throws up roadblocks with each corner they turn. The number of students may be overwhelming, but we need to attack the problem one at a time. While I am under-resourced in my own way, I realize that my life has been blessed. I have 2 beautiful girls whom are the light of my life. They inspire me each and every day and have motivated me to continue. Although my educational aspirations aren't easy for them, I believe that one day they will look back and realize that I did this for them. I hope that it will inspire them to continue on with their education and realize that it is the only way to get ahead. I will strive to do my best at Rutgers, assuming I get in, to achieve my bachelor's degree in social work and then perhaps my master's. I plan on working with children in some capacity because I believe that if we get to these kids early, they have a chance. We need to inspire them and work with them to overcome the difficult life that some of them have been dealt. I wish to end with a quote by Carl Upchurch, which I had found in one of our Poverty and Society textbooks. I finally understood that, in the end, I may not be responsible for what I was, but I am responsible for what I am, what I hope to become, and what I hope my children will become. I'm the role model now. I cannot possibly demand moral behaviors from others, demand integrity and forthrightness if my own life does not exemplify it.
Hi, I'm Holly Paterno. I come from a large family consisting of me, my 3 younger sisters, my mother, my father, my 3 dogs, and 2 cats. Yes, my house is a zoo. I enjoy going to school and learning, hence the reason I have been at Raritan Valley Community College for 7 continuous years, and I'm now only going to graduate in May with my associate's degree in pre-social work. After high school, it was very hard for me when all of my friends went off to college and I was stuck going to community college. Now, I couldn't thank my parents more for giving me the opportunity to find out who I really am and take all the time I need to finally find the right major and classes for me. I was typing this journal entry as the 6-year-old I nanny for was looking over my shoulder trying to read what I was writing. She was saying, "Learning is fun, and what does poverty mean?" She then gives her explanation of poverty. She said that poverty means people that aren't lucky and people that are sad. It's funny to hear a little kid explain poverty because she was kind of close. I have personally never experienced poverty of any sort, and neither has anyone that I'm close to. Growing up, I always had everything I needed and more. This was fantastic, being that we were a family of 6. My mother stayed home with us while my father worked 2 jobs. We were never deprived of the wants that we needed. Did we go on yearly family vacations? No, but we always had food on the table, a roof over our heads, and new clothes to wear. The only place that I have ever witnessed poverty in any way would be in New York City. I know I probably sound very spoiled and naive with the current poverty situation. That being said, this is why I was very interested in taking the course Poverty in Society. I'm very used to my way of living, and not everyone is as privileged as I am lucky to be. One thing that really started to make sense to me is that I do have the power to change things that I have a problem with in my community. I have a voice, as we all do. We just have to know how and when to use our voice. During this past year, there has been a major change in the way I view things politically. I never used to read the newspaper and never used to care about what was going on in the world around me. I now look back at that just a little over a year ago and think how stupid that was. How can a person not care about the things that are going around them locally and nationally or even internationally? The changes affect everyone in this world, even if they don't think so. The choices the government makes may not affect all of us directly, but we should all have some view on what is happening in the world. Now the first thing I do when I wake up is check the news, and the last thing I do before I go to sleep is check the news. I still don't read the newspaper, but I do check the news apps on my phone every day. I want to be involved, and I think this is a great start. I don't want to sound uneducated or sound stupid when I'm speaking with others. I am 25 years old, and I should have somewhat of a clue of what is going on in my world. While reading Chapter 11 in David Shipler's book, I realized that I agree with the statement that America has the knowledge and most of the resources to help fix poverty, but completely lacks the will. This is true with almost every situation in America that has a policy. The knowledge is there, but the will is not. The policies all look fantastic on paper, but when it comes time to implement them, they mostly fail or don't target and help the groups that the policy was originated for. More people have to have the will to help and the will to get involved. Yes, this concept took me a very long time to grasp. I was always one of the people that thought my vote won't make a difference and my view certainly won't make a difference. If everyone thought this way, then nothing would really get done, more than it has already not gotten done already. People that have the same views need to speak up and band together because history has proven that this works and can help promote a point and direct the issue at the correct people. We need to get involved with our school, with our community, and with politics. I am inspired to become more involved the more that I know. What saddens me is that I have had the opportunity to become involved and make a difference and vote. I have just chose not to. People in poverty often do not get involved either. They too often remain unaware of what is going on locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. The government is making choices for the people in poverty. The government is making laws and policies on what would fix poverty when the people in charge of making these policies have not experienced a day of poverty in their lives. We must find a means by which to educate those in poverty. They need to get involved. They need to vote. They need to be supported and encouraged to know that they can make a difference and that they will be the difference. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hannah. This is Carly. She's not mine. I wish she was, but I'm her babysitter. Are you okay? All right, we'll support each other. Good morning. I'm Hannah Tiah, born and raised in Sweden, now an au pair in America. I decided to take a year off my life to focus on myself, let myself learn, experience, and grow. This I chose to do by leaving my family, my safety net, my entire life. Everything that I was used to, I left for another life across the globe. I didn't know what to expect or what was going to happen. I just knew that whatever it was going to help me in one way or another. I wanted a challenge, and now here I am, taking care of 4 children, learning, experience, and growing every single day. The other ones are at school. don't worry. One of the reasons why I love working with children is because I see a child almost as a blank piece of paper. It might sound weird, but if you think about it, you can form a child into anything you want. You can teach them anything you would like for them to be taught. I want to teach children what I believe is wrong and right. I want children to grow and care about the people around them. I want them to know that you're not in this world by yourself. We're in it together. I am Tiah, and I'm on this earth to make a difference. All my life, I felt like I was missing a passion. I felt like I had no goal in life, nothing to strive for. I kept wondering what my purpose on this earth was. Until one day, a day like every other day, I was having dinner with my mother, and I remember her saying, "Hannah, maybe you should work within humanitarian aid." And that was when I knew. Everything just made sense. It was like I finally realized what I was going to do with my life. Ever since, I've been spending every day of my life saving towards my dream of making this earth a better place to live on, especially for the less fortunate. During my 19 years on this earth, I've never really experienced poverty. I don't come from a rich background, but I have always had a roof over my head, food on the table, and clothes on my body. In Sweden, education and healthcare is for free, so I have always been healthy and had the chance to do the best with my life. My family has been fortunate enough to go on vacation at least once a year. It wasn't until I went on a trip to Cuba that I really understood that money isn't what defines happiness or pretty much anything else in life either. These people barely have any money at all, and still everywhere you go, people are dancing, singing, and just spreading joy. I've never in my life seen people this happy, and they have what the rest of the world will call nothing. This trip made me look at the world in a different way. It changed me completely. It made me realize how much happiness we put into material things, how much we care more about having the latest electronics than if our neighbor has food on the table. The problem is not that there isn't enough food on the planet to feed all its citizens. The problem is that some people have too much of it, whilst others have barely any of it. There are people dying from obesity, and there are people... Hey, you distracted me. There are people dying from obesity, and there are people dying from starving. Doesn't that tell us something? Doesn't that even tell us a lot? This is what makes me want to do what I want to do. This is what is so messed up with this world. Nelson Mandela once said, "Poverty is not an accident. Like slavery and apartheid, it is man-made and can be removed by the actions of human beings." And this is what makes me believe in change. I believe poverty can be fought. It can go away. We can make it go away. All we have to do is work together. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe that is what makes this really not so hard thing so damn hard. We would have to come together and make changes I don't think people are ready to make. Now, this is what I think, but I am a hopeful person. So what I believe in is change for the better. We just have to put our minds and our hearts to it, and of course, keep believing and never lose hope. Thank you.
Hi, Austin. I want to thank you all for being here. Not that any of you are here specifically for me, but for the cause, which I appreciate nonetheless. Today I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to use the laser pointer since I now have batteries. There we go. Healthcare resources of RVCC students. I'm lucky enough to be a member of SEPSA, and I was also a Poverty and Society student last semester here. And that's when I met Professor Yulissa, who I think everyone said good things so far today. And I was fortunate enough that this semester, as a member of the Honors College here, I had to do a semester-long research project. Not that this took a whole semester. This is all in the last, 3 days because I've been procrastinating. But I asked Yulissa, or I've never called her that, Professor Liss, to be my mentor, essentially, for this project. And as a pre-med major, I wanted to do something related to my field of study, but I didn't want to do, lab work or anything dull like that. So this is what we came up with together. And I think it's appropriate, since we're talking about health and healthcare, to begin with an exercise. I know you're eating, but if we could all stand up for this exercise, I think that'd be good. Okay, and now you can all sit back down because it's not that kind of exercise. This is a mental exercise, which everyone who fell for that obviously needs. Okay, so let's begin. Now, I think all of you would agree that this looks like someone in poverty to you. I don't know about anymore. This is the guy with the golden voice. I don't know. You might have, if you ever watch news, you might have heard of this man. But I think we agree. You know, he's got the cardboard and the camo and the messy hair, and so that's probably what poverty looks like to a lot of us. But what about this man? Now, when you see this man, what do you think? Do you think a successful business owner, or do you think a minimum wage chef? And that's two different ends of the spectrum here. What about, these two women? Which one is in poverty? Which one is the typical Hunterdon County, Somerset County resident, you know, upper middle class? There's no right answer. It's stock footage, so these are not even real people. But just as an exercise, what do you think? What about these two students? Again, no right answer. But the main point that I want to drive home here is that poverty has many faces. I think that's a term that Alicia, wow, what am I doing? Professor Liss, I don't want to call you that. We're not that close. I'm just kidding. That Professor Liss, I think, said this in like her opening remarks, and it was something she emphasized throughout our time in poverty in society. Poverty has many faces. I think you saw quite a few up front today, and there's quite a few around the campus as well. And with that in mind, we looked into healthcare for RVCC students, which sometimes, as we found out, are more in need than we might suspect. So to do this, we did a survey. Professor Liss likes to call it a survey instrument, and I would say she was instrumental in making the survey instrument. She did a lot of it. So if you're a student and you filled out the survey, then congratulations, you helped us out. Unfortunately, this is just the top of the first page. There was quite a few questions, much to my dismay, because I had to do a bunch of going through each one, coding into the computer so we can make some sense of it all. And like I said, I waited till the last minute to do all that, so this is what we got out of it. I took the most important questions, and that's what I'm going to go over with you today. The first one I got here, do you have some form of health insurance? To that, first of all, I should start over with explaining what the survey is. We distributed the survey, a select group of classes, and I believe we got about 125 responses, which isn't too bad. So 125 students responded to this survey, and these are the results that they gave us. 82% said they have health insurance. 18% said they do not. Now, I don't know if that's representative of RVCC as a whole. It may not be. It very well may not be. But that's what I have to go with. So what am I going to do? This was really surprising to me because some of you may know that full-time students at RVCC, it's actually mandated that they must have some sort of health insurance. There's actually an automatic $35 fee per semester. These guys know what I'm talking about. $35 fee per semester that all students, it's very basic coverage that they receive. And I'm going to try to look on this side a little bit more. All students receive, and unless they can show some sort of proof of insurance already. So the fact that 18% said they don't have any form of health insurance, I'm not sure if they weren't thinking about the RVCC policy, which it's right up. It was on the very next question, so hopefully that would have jogged their memory. But if not, it might be that these are a lot of part-time students, and as I said before, it's full-time students that have this requirement. So part-time students, they might be more impoverished to begin with, so naturally there's a chance that they won't have health insurance. And now please check the box. I'm gonna get a drink here. Hold on one second. I apologize. Thank you. Okay, so please check the box that best describes how you have obtained this health insurance. Now, this is obviously for the 82%. 18% probably won't have much to say here. Through my employer, 8%. Through RVCC student health insurance policy, which I just discussed, only 2%. So, like I said, I think most of it is that people don't even recognize this as insurance, and I almost rightfully so, because it's very basic coverage. I have a slide on it later I'll go over, and you'll see what I'm talking about there. But 81% said, I am on my parents' or guardians' policy, which makes sense because we have a lot of adult students here, which are lovely, but we still have a very young population for the most part. And so most of it is coming from parents and guardians policy, but not all students' parents even have health insurance to begin with. I'm just going to go forward to the next one. You can see the rest here round out the most. If you notice, if you're a math whiz and you notice that's more than 100, some people had more than one box that they checked, so in case you were curious. So if you do not have health insurance, why not, was another question we asked. And this was an open-ended question where people could fill in their own custom responses. I picked out a few of the best. So these are the best of the best responses. The most common ones were can't afford it, too expensive. That's really it. A lot of misspellings, but those were the two main points. But these were some of the best of the best. I'll go through a few of my favorites. First one that I'll go over. On unemployment, full-time students are not eligible for Medicaid. Now, I didn't look into that, but I'm not sure. Is that true? Press the list. Is that true? That is true. And I believe it because as we've seen a lot of these policies, it doesn't make sense to me why full-time students wouldn't be allowed to have health insurance through Medicaid, but it happens. Combination of things. Too old, 21. This really confused me because, as most of you probably know, recently it was insurance benefits on parents' plans were extended to the age of 26, I believe, for college students. So I don't know if that is just, I don't know, maybe it was his 21st birthday when he filled out this survey, but he said too old, and maybe he's just misinformed, and that's a problem that we don't have students really knowledgeable about health insurance on campus here. I'm poor. That was a good one with the exclamation mark. And then the last one here, don't need it. And like I said, I disagree personally about not needing it. It's true that college students and younger people as a whole don't get sick as often as older people. Sorry, older people. It's just true. But at the same time, college students have and young people have a much greater chance of getting in like auto accidents, for example. And that's, health insurance isn't just sickness, but accidents is part of that. So to say that you don't need health insurance, you never know, really. And I think that's part of going into the ignorance that came along with a couple of these responses here. All right, so let's go on to the next. Within the past 12 months, approximately how much have you spent out of your own pocket for the following types of healthcare expenses? Now, I have quite a few different blocks here of healthcare areas. I'm not going to go over each one individually, but I will discuss just the first one to get you an idea of what we were doing here, and then I'll go over the total at the bottom. So for medical doctor, the average cost for students who had medical doctor expenses, so these don't count students who put a big zero or a line through it. The average was $718 roughly dollars in the past 12 months. And as you can see, 41% of uninsured students had medical doctor expenses. So of those 41%, the average was $718. Now, for insured students, 39% had medical doctor expenses, and those expenses were $404. So you can already see the difference that's starting here, although the difference in my mind wasn't as big as I was expecting. And I think there's a number of factors that can contribute to that. The one that comes to my mind immediately is that if you're in poverty and you don't have health insurance, you're probably not going to run to the doctor the first time you get a sniffle. Maybe you will. I don't know. But so you see a trend here where it's slightly more here, slightly more here. Here it's actually reversed, where uninsured actually had less of an average cost over the previous 12 months. But again, I think that's contributing to who actually is going to to go to the doctor, who is going to be admitted to the hospital. And if you're uninsured, the odds of that are less likely. But what I want to focus on is the bottom here. The total healthcare cost of surveyed students, nearly $70,000, which I was really surprised, because you hear about how, college students, they don't have healthcare expenses, but $70,000 for 125 students that were surveyed. These are just the surveyed students. So I can imagine extrapolated to the rest of the RVCC population what those figures would look like. But keep in mind that not all of the 125 students had healthcare expenses to begin with. So I'd say probably, I don't have the exact percentage up here, but I'd say there's probably a slight majority of students who had any expenses to begin with. So say 50% of 125. So say 60, 70 students. Out of those 60, 70 students, there was $70,000 of healthcare costs. So that's, I can't do simple math right now. That's $1,000 per student. I don't know. I found it surprising. Now, do you currently have any unpaid medical bills? This was another one where the percentages look pretty good, you know. Most of them said no, but there's still 15% that said yes. And that, in fact, the total medical debt was over $40,000 for the students that we surveyed. Here you see that 31% of students with medical debt were uninsured, 69% of medical debt were insured. But the people with medical debt, 15% of 125, and then divide that by $42,000. That's a significant medical debt that each student had obtained or had amassed over their previous 12 months. Now, what I was surprised, there was an example that I don't have on the board I wanted to share with you. I don't know if this breaches any confidentiality agreements or anything like that, but there was one survey in particular. It was by, I'm going to be very general to not expose anyone in case you know this person. But there was a woman who was in her 40s, so that's as specific as I'm going to get. There's a woman in her 40s, and she had insurance. I believe it was an individual policy, and her medical debt was over $12,000. Now, that's a student in our classrooms at RVCC who has over $12,000 of medical debt. And what really surprised me is that when I looked at the previous question, which said within the past 12 months, approximately how much have you spent? Within the past 12 months, for that student, the amount she spent was only about $6,000. So she had $12,000 in debt. $6,000 was in the past 12 months. So this has been a debt that's been weighing on her for quite some time, and yet she's going to RVCC, she's taking classes, and I can't imagine how you could possibly, one, focus on your classwork, and how you can afford to pay tuition when you got that debt weighing over you. Okay, now these are the last questions I'm gonna quickly go over here. Professor Liss, I believe, had bronchitis during the semester, so obviously that was her inspiration for this question. If you believed you had contracted a serious case of bronchitis, would you call a physician? 91 said yes, 9% said no. Do you know the name of the physician you would call? 73% yes, 27% no. If you believe you need a root canal, would you call a dentist? Yes, no, yes, no. So you get the idea. What I took away from this most was that here, 27 and 17% didn't even know what doctor to call if they had a serious illness, which gives, in my mind, suggests that they don't have a regular doctor, which is a problem, especially for a serious illness like bronchitis. I know Professor Liss was on her deathbed for quite a while there, and she pulled through. We were pretty happy. Well, we were slightly happy about it, but hopefully she knew what doctor to call. So the main idea about what I've just discussed here is that healthcare is important to RVCC students. Now, this isn't whether they think it's important or not, that's something different, but it's obviously, it plays a factor in their lives, whether you believe it or not. Healthcare is important to RVCC students. What I want to focus on here are some resources that are available to students. So if you're a student here, this should be helpful to you. If you're not a student here, it might be helpful to you anyway. The RVCC Student Insurance Program, which I discussed earlier, this is a brochure. I actually had a copy with me. It's in my backpack right now, so that doesn't help anyone. But this is a brochure available in the finance office, which discusses exactly what this policy is. Like I said, $35 a month. I thought it was here somewhere. $35 for a semester, I should say, of coverage. And I'm going to quote exactly from the brochure. Since July 1st, 1989, New Jersey has mandated that all full-time college students have medical hospitalization insurance. So that's what I was discussing earlier. All eligible students are automatically enrolled in this plan unless they have elected to waive the coverage and provided proof of other insurance. The cost of insurance, as you see, $35 per semester for the fall and spring. Now, this is some of, I picked and choose a few benefits that I want to cover here. Inpatient room and board ICU up to $400 a day. So that's what I call, I'm calling it the sliding door fee. That's like how much they charge you when you walk in the door of the hospital and the sliding door opens to greet you. So $400 a day, that's what you get from this plan. Outpatient physician's visit, $50 a visit, 500 max. Prescription drugs, including prescription of female contraceptives, up to $50. So if you're going to use that one, you're probably getting your money's worth for the $35. But otherwise, most of the benefits are pretty limited. This one I was really interested in, accidental death and dismemberment, because I'm a Walking Dead fan. Game of Thrones, that's fantastic. So Jamie Lannister could use this right now. For accidental dismemberment, you get $1,000. Accidental death, $1,000. So keep in mind, if someone goes to RVCC that you love, they unfortunately pass away, at least you get $1,000. So that's almost worth it, isn't it? But unfortunately, when I was talking about how this mandate is in effect since July of '89, recently a bill was passed which eliminated health insurance mandate for county college students. You can see this is the actual headline I took, right from the headlines, like a Law and Order. Now, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because there was a reason for this. And the reason is given here by John DeMeo, who introduced this bill. This is an important measure for county college students who would have faced significant health insurance costs with the full implementation of Obamacare. Basic plans offered by schools are estimated to jump from a few $100s annually to more than $1,500. So I'm not sure how much this applies to RVCC. We were starting at only $35, so the few $100s might be slightly inflated. I don't know how inflated the $1,500 is. But even if it was only $1,000 after this came into effect, that's almost half or a third of the cost of tuition. That's significant. And so that was their reason for eliminating this mandate. Consequently, I think that what we can take from this is that students not having health insurance, it will likely become more common on RVCC rather than less common. Now, here are this is going into the resources that are available. I was introduced, I don't know if Barbara Luby is here, but she is a counselor at RVCC, the Advising and Counseling Center. She was very helpful, and she actually introduced me to what is called the FHCC, and it's at UMDNJ. Now, like I said, I'm a pre-med major, so I should probably know something about UMDNJ because I may be going there one day. But this is the Student Family Healthcare Center, and it's run by medical students. I believe it's free of charge, yes, free of charge. And everything's done under the supervision of a physician, and it offers the following services: physical examinations, disease management, gynecological care, pediatric care, and psychosocial counseling. So if you live in the Newark area and you can get that, I would take advantage of it. It's open Tuesday and Thursday evenings. You can find more information at umdnj.edu. Now, the next thing I want to go over, which is another resource that I was introduced to by Mrs. Luby, is Zufall. Now, Zufall is a private, not-for-profit clinic that provides treatment by certified physicians regardless of insurance and income status. And actually, this isn't just something over in New York that's run by a hospital or a med school. This is something that is right here at home. This is in Hunterdon counties, Hunterdon, Warren, and I believe there's one other. It wasn't Somerset. Morris, thank you. I don't know, how does everyone know about this? Thank you. All right, and now these services that they provide, illness, you can read through this, illness and injury, preventive care, pediatric care, so a whole smorgasbord of services that are provided. Here are the where they're located. There's health centers in Dover, Morristown, Hackettstown, New Jersey, a dental center in Dover. So close by, but not right here at home. What I would prefer is something that was right here, and that is where the Highlands Health Van comes into play. This is part of Zufall. It's an eco-friendly mobile medical unit. There's scheduled stops in Sussex, Hunterdon, and Warren counties. See, Sussex, not Morris. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Sussex, Hunterdon, and Warren counties. The regular locations are in Flemington, Hackettstown, Dover, and Washington. But I was looking at the schedule that they had up there, and there was retirement villages. There were other locations that they made scheduled stops. So I think what some of our students could benefit from, the ones that we were talking about earlier, let's bring the van to RVCC. I think if they get a few calls saying, could you come to RVCC? We have students here that could need your help. I think it's something feasible. The last thing I want to go over was the idea of a nurse's office, which also was introduced by Mrs. Luby. And what surprised me is that RVCC had a nurse's office, which was eliminated not by President Crable, but the prior president, according to what Mrs. Luby told me. It was as a cost-cutting measure. But this school nurse actually brought in a doctor once a week to see students free of charge. A nurse's office would also give students a quiet place to rest. Mrs. Luby was telling me about a student who I believe had, it was some sort of cancer, and she couldn't come to school because there was nowhere to go in case she felt sick. She'd have to go home and she'd miss classes, and it was a problem for her. They had to put a couch in one of the women's bathrooms, and I don't see why that's necessary. We have space for having a new building open up. And we also have a nursing program, which I feel like has become really important to our school. I know a lot of nursing students, and I don't see why a nurse's office couldn't have nursing students rotate in and out on a shift basis to provide some sort of experience, put it on the resume, makes RVCC look good, makes the students look good, and it gives RVCC students a resource that they need. In sum, we found out that RVCC students have significant healthcare costs, and the elimination of the health insurance mandate may make it a more common problem here. And now the resources are UMDNJ, the Student Family Healthcare Center. You can find more information at umdnj.edu. Zufall Health Center, that's zufallhealth.org, and the Highland Health Van. Now, the possible next steps to confront this problem of healthcare at RVCC, we could bring the Highland Health Van to RVCC, and we could begin discussing reopening a nurse's office on campus. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And I am a student. I'm a student here at RVCC. Sometimes when I'm in front of the audience, I'm tempted to. I'm a happily married man, husband to Nora, and father to Tracy and Rooney. My fellow brothers and sisters, today we have come together to pay our concern to the voices of the poor. When I was 10 years old, my mother told me that the first indicator that a baby is alive at birth is by crying. This was normal to me by then, but 32 years later, I have come with a theory to suggest that crying when a baby is born is a sign of welcoming the challenges of the world, poverty among them. 32 years later, my theory has also suggested that the challenges we encounter in life has nothing to do with God, but purely on mankind. It is for this matter that when we gather here today, it is important to rewind the history, assess the human behavior and environment of the past, and for us to get a hint of how tomorrow will be if the factors are considered the same. Biblically, God speaks to us on poverty. Why do I say so? Deuteronomy 15 verses 11 states, I quote, "There will always be poor people in the world. Therefore I command you to be open-handed toward your brothers and toward the poor and needy in the land." End of quote. Who is God commanding? Sounds like clinical question. God created us with all the knowledge and wisdom He deemed fit for us. He gave us all resources we could need for our well-being. He gave us the ability and strength to work even extra time to fulfill all He wanted us to do. But here is the question. Are we on the right track? The answer is no. In my poverty class, the focus on the causes of poverty and the solutions has been our professor's priority. Our professor has explored every resource, from textbooks to videos to normal experience, only to drive home how poverty is real and how it affects the lives of many in our societies. When you read through investigations into economic class in America by authors Philip Devol and Carla Crodell, you will find that the main categories of causes of poverty are individual behaviors and circumstances, community conditions, exploitation, in addition to political, economic structures. My understanding is that these four categories go together, and the assumption that one perfect one can override the others is a challenge. Similarly, when you read The Working Poor by author David Shipler, it's over there, you will find that not only the author dwelt on the circumstances of poverty, but he also gave very powerful solutions for the same. For instance, under the title Skill and Will, Mr. Shipler wrote, I quote, "Will is a function of power, and the people who work near the edge of poverty don't have very much power. They do have more than they use. However, they have power in their personal lives that many leave untapped. They have power in the marketplace that is not organized effectively. They have power in politics that they practically ignore, the power of the ballot," end of quote. On the same point, Mr. Shipler points out that, quote, "Voting is the basic building block of democratic government, and government is the instrument best positioned to make a difference to the working poor," End of quote. When we analyze the author's sentiment critically, common sense will tell us that our lives depend on voting and voting wisely. This is our weapon and the medicine for those we put in power. The authors have spoken, but they cannot walk alone. They need others for support. They need you to speak out with one voice. They need the media to speak about the impact of poverty, both locally and globally, rather than a media that is overly concerned about the day-to-day life schedule of the celebrities. As an illustration, oh, Celeb F is pregnant. Oh, Celeb X is on vacation. Oh, Celeb F is filing a divorce case. The question is, so what? To carry on, the authors need CEOs who are fully committed to the principles of their work ethics than the CEOs who are only interested in their many allowances. Name them: entertainment allowance, meal allowance, sitting allowance, traveling allowance, as if they are not paid for their work. You never know. Sooner, maybe, they might start to claim family responsibility allowance. Be on the watch. Going further, the authors need a government which abides by the words of the loyalty pledge and the national anthem of a country, rather than a government which rewards through political appointment CEOs who have already looted their companies. If only the people could come together with one love, then ultimately we will one day come and support Professor Muhammad Yunus, a former Bangladeshi banker, economist, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, who once said, I quote, "Once poverty is gone, we'll need to build museums to display its horrors to future generations. They'll wonder why poverty continued so long in human society, how a few people could live in luxury while billions dwelt in misery, deprivation, and despair." End of quote. Let me remind you today, my brothers and sisters, God is not bothered by the luxurious car you drive. God is not bothered by the designer dress you wear. God is not bothered by the mansion house you own. But instead, God is concerned by the way you share your love and wealth to the needy. Some people somewhere can make use of the writing materials you neglect in every corner of the college campus. Some people somewhere can make use of the leftovers you dump in the garbage cans, both at home and in school. Little things we assume here and take for granted are regarded as gold in some areas of the world. Let us remember that providing hope and opportunity to the poor creates stability and prosperity, not only for them, but for the world. Let us be the change we wish to see in the world. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, Lord, bind us together, Lord, bind us together in love. God the Almighty, God the Almighty, we will not surrender to glorify your name. We will not waver to sanctify you. We will not falter to praise you for the wonders and the great things you have done. We pray for more wisdom and blessings. Thank you and God bless you.